Hello and welcome to the show. How you doing, Lynda?
I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing really good. I'm doing really, really good. I just want to let everybody know this is a pre-recorded show this week, and we are so excited to be here with you. And how's your week? What's going on?
Well, my week was really great. This past weekend was great because it was one of my daughter's birthdays. And then
Happy birthday to her.
Yeah, and my other daughter's birthday is also this week. So it's like a little bit busy, right?
You have them pretty close together.
I did 2 years, almost exactly 2 years minus 5 days. Crazy, no?
Yeah. Any plans for your birthday?
Well, one of them, my younger one, she wanted a little bit of pampering. So she went for a pedicure. She got her hair cut. We went out to lunch. That was really great. And then, of course, went home and had cake. And then the other one, she's never gotten her ears pierced. Kathy, she's going to be 30. And she's never gotten her ears pierced. And I still can't get over the fact that I have a 30-year-old, but that's another problem. But no, she's never had her ears pierced. So this is what she wanted for her birthday. So we're doing the ear piercing, and then we're going to go out for lunch and walk around and go home and have cake. So there you go.
So are you going to go to a tattoo parlor for the ear piercing?
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. My, so funny enough, my daughter is are obviously completely different province. So my daughter is a piercer. So the piercing is something that we are very used to in this house. I have many. My daughters have many. The only one that's not pierced and tattooed is my son. He's like, you ain't coming near me with any of that crap. He's like, nope, that's not going to happen. Nope.
No, it's going to be one of those, those needle piercings at an actual piercing and tattoo place. So we're good.
That's the best way to do it. Yeah, it really is, what's interesting. My daughter, when she was 12, this is a piercer. And it's funny because her boyfriend's a tattoo artist, right? So, but when she was 12, she came to me and she says, I want my nose pierced. And I was like, oh, I don't even know if you can get that done at your age. Like, I think you have to be 16, right? And so I phoned around a couple of places, and there was one place that did it. She says, but we have to talk to the kid first. We got to make sure that they're mature enough for all of the stuff that it comes with, right? Like all the stuff that it takes to get to that place.
Yes.
And I said, okay. So I said to her, here's how you have to research it first. You have to research all the care for it. You got to research, all of the, whatever it is. And you got to go to your principal and your teachers, because she was in a Catholic school. I didn't know if that was going to be, an issue or not at her age. Right. I said, you got to get permission from your teachers and your principal, because we're not going to spend the money and go through all this process first, but it's not going to be me. This has to be on you that does it. And, this girl went and she came to me with research, like a pile of research. She went and talked to all of her teachers. She went over and above, what I was even expecting out of her. And I knew back then, I was like, she's going to be a body piercer. Just you watch. I thought this to myself. I never said it to her, because that's her path, right, to choose. But there she is. She's actually very well known in our city. So that's pretty cool. So it's definitely you want to take your daughter to a body piercer to get this done. So, but let's talk about our show. So would you like to introduce our lovely guest?
Oh, yes. Well, Pamela Robinson, boy, I wrote down a couple of things that she does, because I thought, well, I'll write down, all kinds of information. And it's so funny because I wrote down energy work, healing, meditations, Reiki, spiritual healing. And I thought, oh my gosh, there's so much more. Celestial sage, life coach, mentor. She is the real deal. And the whole entire package.
No kidding.
Honestly, she's pretty amazing. And I am so blessed to have her in my little circle. I've interviewed her on the show that I do many times, and it's always a pleasure. Hey, Pamela.
Hello, Lynda. Hello, Cathryn. Very nice to be here.
It is wonderful to meet you too. How are you doing?
I am very well. Excited to be a part of this wonderful show. And,
we are so excited to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, yeah. You do so much. And I swear I've never met another person who can talk about and understand energy like you. Because, let's face it, and Kathy, you know what I mean. You talk about energy to people and they go, what? What do you mean energy? What is that? Right?
Yeah. Well, it's that element of we are energetic beings, right? And we were talking earlier about people who don't understand that we're co-creating with the universe, right? God of your understanding. And the missing piece is that people don't understand that whatever they're putting out in their thought process, in their words, in how they're speaking to others, their behaviors, their choices, that's all, everything to do with that is a vibration. And so whatever you're putting out to the universe then now reinforces it. Mm-hmm. So instead of being mad at the universe because you're not getting what you want, take a step back and go, gee, what am I putting out there? What do I really want to be getting back? Mm-hmm. Because whatever we put out energetically, we get back tenfold. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. So if you're wallowing in, any self-pity or poor me or that victim mode, and that's where your narrative and your story is, that's what you're going to bring about more circumstances to reinforce that. Until you start to go, oh, wait a minute, I'm the one that's participating in this. How do I want to change that? What do I want to do differently? So
that's so interesting, because you're right. I mean,
when
you think about it, right? But you think about all of those people that say things, or they're just nasty, and their environment is just so bad. And then when something happens and they're excluded or something they get so angry, and then it's the blame game, right? I'm going to blame everybody else, but I'm not going to take responsibility for what I am actually doing and giving out, right?
Absolutely correct.
We find a lot of people they like to stay in the victim mentality. They love to stay in victim mode.
Well, I don't think that they're consciously aware that they want to stay in it, that they like staying in it, but also society, everything is set up to keep people in it a little bit.
Absolutely.
Right now,
yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that from my own experiences, I mean, I've been through a lot, I've lived a lot. And every ounce of our darknesses and our challenges and our obstacles is to help us to grow and have a better understanding of ourselves. Because if everything's peaceful, peachy, sunshine, and lollipops, we're not learning anything about ourselves.
That's true. Yeah.
Right. We only grow. And I use the analogy that we're no different than a seed being planted in the earth. It has to grow through darkness. It has to be nurtured just the same way as we grow through our darkness, right? Which is our challenges and our obstacles. The difference between a seed and ourselves, we have the intellect, and that intellect will resist at all costs, going through that rock or around the rock, where a plant does not. It just keeps growing. It just keeps going and moving. And if we can learn so much from nature, from an energetic standpoint. It's how are we getting in our own way? The intellect is great, but we have been taught to overanalyze everything. Mm-hmm. And that, that overanalysis creates paralysis. We've heard that phrase, I'm sure, before. Absolutely. There is so much truth there. So much truth there. So it's learning to get out of our own way.
And our own head sometimes.
So tell us a little bit about how you got started in everything. Like, where did your journey begin, I guess?
Okay.
To some degree, like, because it sounds like you've got several journeys that you've gone on, like, especially, regarding spirituality, regarding your even being psychic, being, having these abilities, like each of those is going to be a journey in itself. But
a brief synopsis. When I was a child, I remember two things. I remember a spaceship outside my bedroom window. And it's a very vague memory, so I've questioned it many times in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I've never worried about it, but it's been there. I, at about 6 years of age, literally saw gold crabs coming out from underneath my bed. And I'm talking every time my father would shut the bedroom door, these crabs would come out. I ended up in hysteria, and my father spanked me to get grounded.
Wow.
So I, at that point, realized, as I matured, realized that that was a vision. I still don't really know what the vision meant, but it doesn't matter. It was a vision. And then after my father spanking me, I didn't have those visions anymore. And that's fine. I mean, in the time, they just want to protect you. Like back in that era, I was born in 1961. Like, spirituality was not something that was talked about. My dad could read tea leaves, right? Yeah. So there's a lineage there for me as well. But it's an element of it. I've spent my life finding and remembering who I am. And it was 2006 that actually helped me to solidify. I went to school to become a registered social service worker, get my diploma. And that took me into having an understanding of how the healing powers I had. Right. Because I took a spiritual healing course on Six Nations Reserve, and my mentors there, because the response of the women was so incredible, they said, you need to get a table. So that started me in really exploring everything. But before that, when I looked back on my life, I was helping people to cross, having those conversations with them. My first act of service was 7 years of age, right? Like, so the universe was working with me and through me. Mm-hmm. I was entrepreneurial spirited. So at a conference, a woman collapsed in our room. I was the party animal up to the wee hours of the morning. I just crawled into the cot, fully clothed, not wanting to disrupt anybody because I was so respectful. Well, this woman collapsed. Her husband was with the boys, sharing space because we were all financially trying to make it work. And the first question when the ambulance got there is, well, who's going to go to the hospital with Cliff? And I said, well, I'm dressed. So I've had a lot of experiences like that in my life. That's just one that was very profound, but I don't think I'm any different than anyone else. It's just I have the level of awareness now. That took me, once I discovered the healing abilities, I started to take Reiki. I realized we don't really need the papers, in all honesty. It's whether we're developing it, whether we're using it. I was using it without any awareness. And I think what was really lovely about understanding that is that the ego was not involved all that time. I was just living my human life, right? And I was put in different situations and circumstances that were helping a lot of other people. And I dated a guy for 1.5 years who ended up getting cancer and passing away. And I went through that alone with him, very supportive. Well, after that, I ended up in a group of people who rode motorcycles, and 3 of my friends in that group were going through losing partners to cancer. So here I am in supporting these people as well. Like, it's just, we are guided, whether we're aware of it or not.
Yeah. And it's very synchronistic too, without us even being, and especially if we can, when we remove that overthinking, especially, things become very synchronistic.
Yeah. And then I started working the psychic fairs. I started as a front person. And what was really interesting is people started coming to me and saying, I want you to do the readings. And I'm like, well, I don't think my boss would like that too much. And I'm not quite ready. And so, again, being guided, stepping in there, really getting an understanding of it on all levels. Things evolved with me quite naturally. It wasn't a matter of a sudden thing happened. It was very, very, I think, methodical from the universe's perspective. And then what happened is my dad passed away, and the morning of my dad's memorial, I got my invite, because this psychic circuit, the only way you were invited or involved was if you got invited. So I got my email the morning of his memorial.
Oh, wow.
So, again, signs that my dad was with me.
Yeah.
I've got my mom is with me. The cat that I have, I know my mom brought, because my mom passed away April 11th, 21. The cat's birthday was April 11th, 2023. And I did not know that until I got home. So there are a lot of synchronicities in life. A lot of people just don't put the two and two together because we're not taught to, right?
Yeah.
We're taught to follow constructs, family constructs, then societal constructs. And I'm sure all of us that are speaking right now or here in this call have broken those constructs in a lot of ways. And so I know that I've been a lone wolf for a long time, and I'm sure you guys can attest to the same thing. But that lone wolf, I think, was really important because we had to have that understanding of what everything that it feels like, so that we're better able to help the other ones that were coming in. We're kind of the pioneers, I guess, is the best way to describe it, in that spiritual understanding and paving the way. And I know that with the work I do, I have a lot of people that they're really not fitting in their family construct. We're talking different cultures, that they're not fitting with their religion or the belief system, and they're fighting and arguing with their family. And I tell them, you're the angels, because they have this unconditional love and want a unity that I know I have wanted forever. And what I'm finding now is collaboration is so important. We can't do it alone anymore.
Yeah.
So
I do think, however, the journey to in some aspects, the journey, like you were saying earlier, I think that alone part of the journey is so absolutely necessary, because I noticed that a lot of people immediately start to get into some sort of collective, whether this is like social media or whether it's like, oh, I'm going to, meet up, or however they do it. But what they're doing is they're not realizing their own energy. They're not realizing that their own abilities, their own power, they're not receiving their own ideas or their own thoughts. They're actually in a collective, and some parts of that collective aren't, they're not part of the true truth, I guess, is like you've got to learn it for yourself first before you can really expand and find the collective that you're supposed to be a part of, I guess, is the best way to say it.
I think you're absolutely right there, is that we are beings of experience. And I use the example, mom and dad tell you don't do something, and as a kid you're going, screw you, I'm going to do it the way I want to anyway. Right?
Yeah.
Because we're beings of experience, we have to go through that experience, and then it solidifies, oh yeah, now that makes sense. And we can internalize it differently, right?
Absolutely.
And I agree with you. What I'm seeing and have seen for a few years now is there's a lot of younger people who are getting into they get into their own little healing bubbles, is the West,
right?
Their own collective or their own like group gatherings, and the egos are being run a little bit differently than they would have in our era, right? So I don't want to work for a living. I want to barter. Right? What the point that I see happening, and this is just my opinion, is that they're missing opportunities being in the mainstream to learn more about themselves, first of all, and second of all, planting seeds into the people and the masses that don't really understand it yet. So they're protecting themselves rather than stretching themselves.
I find that there's a large hive mentality going on as well. So if one person has a thought, it's almost as, especially in their own little collective, one has a thought and the others are just sort of like, just accepting. Yeah, they're just following rather than going, hey, look at this, doesn't sound right to me. This doesn't seem acceptable. Let me do my own research. Let me look into this. Let me look into that. Let me discover for my own journey. And it almost feels as though there's a lot of restriction in regards to people going on their own journey, because it feels like there is a large collective that is trying to stifle that.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because I have seen people that I've known personally that have gone off and they've created their own little community, and they're traveling around the world and they're doing wonderful. and on some level. But you're right. Like, we have to be able to question things. What really resonates for us?
Yeah.
The following aspect, it's not, that would, to me, is no different than following someone who's doing drugs. Like, to be honest, like it's an experience.
Exactly.
But do you want to follow on that path, or do you want to follow your own and what works for you? And everybody's got a journey. And one of the things that I really work hard is not questioning people's journeys. Right? I'm a human. I have those moments. So I believe that the journeys that those people are going on, there is purpose behind it. I don't get to see that purpose.
Exactly.
But it's understanding also that our role here as light workers, as people who are in the spiritual movement, is to be reaching the people who aren't there yet.
Yeah.
Not just formulating together where we're just in that little bubble. It's like, that's not going to move the masses.
Yeah.
Right. And right now is a great time for moving the masses. And I'm not a dog and pony show. I tell people that all the time, but you see a lot of things go out there, and that's what it appears like.
Yeah.
That dog and pony show, and it's rah rah, and it's almost that cultish mentality.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's intentional in any capacity, but again, that's unconscious things that are driving it. And this is what I love working with people on, is helping them to get rid of what unconsciously is driving their decisions, their choices. So we talked earlier about trauma. Trauma isn't always in an event or a worst case scenario. Trauma is whatever has left a scar on your self-esteem. So that's going to be very different for everybody, right? But how we behave from it is similar. So our decisions and our choices are driven. That 0 to 100 in 2.2 seconds,
right,
emotionally, really is about the unconscious things. It's never about the present moment. It's about whatever your compounded pain has been. It's like a steam pot. It has to come out in some way, shape, or form. Right? And that energy affects everything. So if you're suppressing, guess what? You're storing all your pain. That energy is going to permeate your fields, and it's going to affect everything that you're doing or the people that are coming into your world. And a lot of people don't understand that. So it's like, clear what's eating away at you. Therapy should be, when I say therapy, whether it's a traditional form, whether it's a holistic form, therapies should be before medical doctors. I'm a firm believer in that, because I've learned in the work that I'm doing and in my own personal life, our physical ailments are a direct result of stored traumas.
I agree with that.
And when you heal those things, all of a sudden your physical being is energetically doing wonderful.
Yeah.
It's the systems, the way that they've been built over the decades and centuries, is actually going against what it is truly for us that we need.
Instead of helping people on different levels, this isn't quite in correlation, but it is to some degree. I have Crohn's, and so sometimes it can, really affect me. And I've been, doing my own research, and, and with the gut can affect, your head. It can affect so many areas within your body. So for me, healing that is very important to me. So I've been, just working on different things. But, it's interesting, because what does my doctor want to do? Well, they want to stick me on biologicals, like all of these different medications, which, they do help and all of that stuff. But then I was just going through, and I just had this feeling, I'm going to go look up some vitamins. I just want to look up some vitamins. Even I want to see what supplements can possibly help with Crohn's. And, I found that vitamin D, vitamin K, calcium can perform like really amazing things within the body, right?
If you're getting the right dosage, right? Because
absolutely the right dosage. Yeah. But it's amazing. My doctor never once said that to me.
No, I know.
Not once ever brought it up. That the only thing that I ever heard was, well, we'll stick you on this. We'll stick you on that. Here, try this, try that, and I was like, And I've been, taking these things, for last couple of weeks, and I feel amazing.
Yep. And it's, you're right. I mean, even with what work I'm doing, I am grateful that I'm actually in a medical building and I have doctors referring people to me.
Yes.
Before
That is
wouldn't have,
amazing. Absolutely.
Right?
And that's how it should be, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I have the licensing that backs me, but what they're amazed with is that depression and anxiety is running rampant.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times medication isn't helping, right? And doctors are starting to recognize this. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that I really explain to people is depression is anger turned inward. Everything and more often it's about anger at ourselves than it is the world, because there's a part of us that knows that we should be doing or behaving or standing up for ourselves. We know this intrinsically. So the anger gets turned inward instead of being expressed outwardly, right? Anxiety is fear of the future, fear of what's next, right?
Yeah.
And there's an analogy that was given to me a long time ago, and it's a little graphic, people, but it's to the point. If you've got a foot in the past and you have a foot in the future, you're pissing all over today. Like that is the essence of, we want to be in the magic of the moment. Yeah. Magic happens being present, being in a good place, right? And sometimes not being in a good place, because we're in the human experience. So there's value to it all. It's accepting it. Accepting the good, the bad, and the ugly. Loving yourself first and foremost, despite what you might be going through, rather than blaming yourself or blaming. And when I say blaming yourself, it's okay to take responsibility. But if you're beating yourself up over and over for your mistakes or what you think you should have done differently, a lot of times what's happening is you may have left abuse behind, but you're keeping it very much alive in how you speak to yourself.
Yes.
Because there's a familiarity to it. Do you know how many times I've had people say, when it's peaceful and it's content, oh my God, it feels boring?
Really? Oh, for sure. Absolutely.
Because you're used to being at a heightened state of angst all the time. So what happens is they'll start to formulate things in their own mind, in their own narrative, to create that feeling.
Yeah.
Right? Because they know how to operate in that survival state.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
That is really interesting. I got to tell you, this is really an interesting conversation, because I met someone randomly last week. It was one of those, chance kind of things where you end up sitting next to somebody in a situation like a waiting room. And it was really interesting because we started to talk about diabetes. Mm-hmm. Now, I have type 2 diabetes. I was diagnosed in 2017. It's much better. I'm feeling better. Everything is much better. But we started to talk about it. And I said, I'd love to reverse my type 2 diabetes. I'd love to do that. Right. And this other woman across from us, who had one of those gin and tonic voices, who was kind of like those savants, honestly. All she said was, sweetheart, you have to stop being so sweet to people. Now, isn't that interesting?
Oh, that's funny.
Right?
Yeah.
And it makes you think, right? Because all of our ailments that we have, you're right. I mean, they come from somewhere. They just don't sort of randomly happen. And if you are the kind of person who's more aware, right, more cognizant of not just yourself, but of your surroundings and also your vibration and all of that, the energy around you, you sort of start thinking about things a little differently. And when she said that, that's the only thing I could think about that whole day. And I thought, I got to read like more Louise Hay or something, because man, oh man, she's got a point. Like
Louise Hay is great. Lise Bourbeau is another one that's got a book this thick. And she's out of Montreal, if I'm not mistaken. But she lists all of the metaphysical reasons for our illnesses. So it is. And again, when I'm working with people, what I have discovered is energetically, once they've healed some of their mental and emotional baggage, their physical ailments get better. Like I dealt with one woman with lupus, and the pain in her hands or feet released, but also because she did clearings, But then when she started to believe in the power of her own mind and that the body can heal itself. So she called me up one day and she said, look, my pain is just so bad in my hands and feet. Like, it's driving me crazy. I'm like, okay. So what we did is, rather than just clearing the mental and emotional, we literally said, okay, let's place that into a circle in the process that I do. And let's you start repeating your reset word, because my process has a reset word, and let's see what happens. And by the end of it, she was able to say, oh my God, I'm like, the relief is crazy. And I don't have like science backing it, if you understand what I mean when I say that. I don't have all of the reports, but I have the proof in the pudding with the people that I deal with on the regular. I've had people who've come from other, working with psychiatry or psychology, and they're feeling really stuck and like they haven't moved. And, taking a 16-year-old girl who had experienced a lot of abuse from her grandfather and her father, actually, no, just her grandfather. There's a couple of them, and been through all kinds of therapy. And within 3 sessions of doing my point of awareness method, she felt more grounded in herself. Now, she came for me for a few more sessions, but she's now off in university. She's living a normal life, not carrying the burden of her experience as a child. And that's, allowing and being able to have someone step into their own power and follow what they want to be doing in their passion and not be impeded by this anymore. It's incredible.
You know what? I love that. And it's funny, when you were talking before, I cannot help but relate it to the work that I do as a paranormal investigator, and Kathy, you as well, that, when we deal with a lot of energies that are stuck, right? It's their inability to sort of move on. And
absolutely.
Right. So when we deal with that as paranormal people, we understand that, that kind of correlation, right, between getting stuck, being unable to move on, and then trying to sort of almost talk them through the entire process. So I love how that kind of correlates, right?
Absolutely.
Sometimes people too don't realize, like, we have our conscious and our subconscious. So even if our conscious is like, I'm great, I'm amazing, I'm this, I'm that, we have a tape recorder in the back of our head that if we've experienced a lot of, junk or crap, or we haven't released it, or we haven't acknowledged it, or we haven't healed it or cleared it, it's going to be playing a tape in the back of our head. And it's going to be, we can say, I'm amazing, and something back here is going, you're not, right? Or, I trying to explain this to people, like, we have to stop listening to the tape recorder, right? Or we have to start finding a way to change the tape recorder, whether this be through subliminal, or whether it be through clearing, or whether it be through, a healing process of some sort. We got to start changing, because even if you're having a great day, what that can happen is, I was explaining this to someone, you could be getting flowers from somebody that you truly love, and you're like all excited, and you have these flowers and you're sniffing them and you're all excited about it. And then your brain all of a sudden goes, yeah, but next week they're going to cheat on me. Next week they're going to ignore my, next week they're going to, because you're relaying all this old crap and trauma, or whatever it is that you've experienced with other people, possibly, or maybe something you read or something you watched on. It might not even be your trauma. It could be another person, or it could be somebody, a friend or a family member that's like, oh, that's nice that he gave you flowers, but next week he's going to do this. Blah. And boom, all of a sudden you're back in this cycle that you're not consciously healing, right? And you've got to heal that subconscious. And it sounds like this is a lot of the work that you do, Pamela.
Absolutely. Over my life and in my experiences, the universe has led me to different techniques and modalities for my own healing, because the traditional talk therapy didn't work. I'm not saying there isn't value in talking about it, but if you're talking about it over and over and over again, and you're not really finding any results, and a lot of the things that we've been taught, CBT, DBT. They're great techniques, but they're Band-Aid solutions, because when we are backed into a corner, we literally go to our default, which is by the time we're 5.
Wow.
Yeah. And so it's that whole element of helping people to understand that every decision and choice you're making, a lot of times you're going back to the 5-year-old survival mode. The minute you go into why about anything, analyzing, you're taking yourself right back to 5-year-old survival state. So with my point of awareness method, it is a reprogramming on the unconscious, subconscious, superconscious, right? Like it's all of that. But we're going to clear how your body might be storing the energy, because we can take care of the mental and emotional. But if we don't release how the body has stored any of that trauma, you're going to have a visceral response and wonder where the heck did that come from. And then add to it the generational, ancestral, and past life energies. What I love about the universe giving me this process is very thorough. You don't have to go into a 3-hour regression. You know, our wisdom that we have. So I speak in ego and pain body and our wisdom, you know, the devil and the angel, right? Mm-hmm. We have these parts of ourselves. It's what we choose to feed. And for the longest time, we're feeding the ego and pain body because that's all we know. But once people start to clear that, organically, you start to step into this strong knowing of who you are. You can start to now listen to the wisdom as opposed to listening to the ego and the pain body. There comes a point where it's ambivalent. You're teeter-tottering between both.
Right.
Yeah.
But I take people through. It's a hypnotic meditative process. It takes about 20 minutes to a half an hour, and it really clears out. People feel a difference. And I'm not going to share on here how they feel a difference. Because if anybody decided to come to me, I don't want anybody to have any preconceived ideas.
Right. Because each person's experience is going to be unique to them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is. Now, the similarities in how they feel afterwards is astounding. Mm-hmm. And organically, like I said, from my own experience, what I recognized is that, suddenly I realized I wasn't reacting to a situation that I would normally be reacting pretty ill to. And I was like, this is working, right? So it's not something that you have to be consciously in the forefront. And then you have the reset word, which ends up being a tool when you're triggered or activated. I like to call it, because it's activating something for a reason, to be healed. And being able to reset with this word, because with the hypnosis, there is a script, right? That's why I say it's a hypnotic meditative process. Mm-hmm. But I've been doing this for 18 years. I did not know it was a hypnosis until I took a hypnosis course. And I was like, but I'm an ordained minister. So the whole element of that spiritual and the energy, the healing energy. So Reiki energy is with me everywhere I go.
Yeah.
So that whole package is what really helps people, the belief in the process. Well, why do I believe in the process? Because it's worked for me, number one. But number two, I've had 18 years of people going through this process, and it wasn't the way it is now. It evolved, but this has been the most effective. And I've only had one person, and I'm really proud and honored to say that, only one person who actually said it doesn't work.
Well, they were probably just stuck in that place too.
And that's fine. And I'm not saying I'm for everybody, because you have to be prepared to look at the good, the bad, and the ugly and accept it. Right. Mm-hmm. I've had people where it has brought up memories that they weren't aware of. But what was lovely about it is it brought it up in a way that they weren't traumatized. It was like now that makes sense to me.
Wow, right. I love that. That's kind of like past life regression. I've had it. I've been through it. Mm-hmm. And it was so interesting because I was very skeptical at first. But then as the process was unfolding, it's amazing how many aha moments that I was aware of, even during the process. And I really didn't think that that's what was going to happen. I thought that, I wasn't going to be aware of anything, that I was going to listen to myself on a recording and then perhaps have the aha moments. But that's not what it's all about. So people, when they talk about past life regression and the experience, it's not like it is in the movies.
No, exactly. You know, you're not going to fall asleep. You're not going to not remember until you listen to a recording. You really are present to what you're being shown. And I too went through the similar thing. And it was beautiful. I mean, what I experienced or saw, you know, I wouldn't even say experience. What I saw was not pleasant, but what didn't affect me in this lifetime. It just gave me an understanding. And what I was blessed to have happen was I went through that experience. And one of the things that my practitioner said to me at that time is, who is the person in this lifetime? Look into that person's eyes in that lifetime. And who is it? And I was able to name a person. And it was somebody that I worked with at Six Nations Reserve. And I'm not kidding you. 10 months after, this woman was doing her own work, because on the reserve, and you're working in an agency, they really encourage that you do your own work. And I'm telling you, she came back to me and reiterated the whole story from her side, her angle. Yeah. It was mind-blowing, like mind-blowing. I had goosebumps, truth bumps. Like, it was like, oh my God.
Is this, so just out of curiosity, would this be similar to something like an Akashic meditation or an Akashic, past life type of energy? And because it's interesting, because I've done that for myself, like, which brought me into different past lives, but I was going in more for like specifics of some, like I wanted to figure out, okay, why do I do this? Or, and then it was able to.
Sorry, hon.
No, that's okay.
When I'm taking people through, I'm not taking them to the Akashic records. What I'm doing is I'm taking them initially through their own lifeline. So whatever age they're at, I take them from that age all the way back into the womb. And why do I take them back into the womb is because energetically you're taking on things from your mom, from the surroundings, right? Like my son came to me at the age of 5 and said, Mom, please put on the Duke album and whatever song he listed. I can't remember now. And I was blown away. Like, how do you know this band or this song or album? It was Genesis at the time. And then I realized while I was pregnant, that's what I was listening to. We actually went to Phil Collins while I was pregnant with them and everything. So it made me realize children do absorb from their environment. And so that, again, solidified me to understand that, okay, this process, I can take people back into the womb. And I've had women say to me, oh my God, I was feeling my mother's like fears and worries, right? Like, and it wasn't, I could tell it was hers. I had one woman who said, oh my God, this feels so warm. Like it felt so warm and safe, right? So she didn't take a lot on, but it gave her that understanding that she was more loved than she realized. So like, it was just, it's you're going through your lifeline. You only have to do that once. I don't take people through that over once. Then we move forward into clearing statements. So I clear all of the ways and the reasons that I am thinking, feeling, believing, whatever it is that you're going through. Right. I do clear the chakras. I clear the energy centers, right? Because those energy centers, if they're not flowing properly, you're going to get convoluted in so many different ways and twisted in so many different ways. So I clear the chakras by clearing how they're blocked, right? First of all, right? Clearing, because there's specific ages and stages. So, the root chakra is very much about safety, security, and stability. I clear all the ways that I'm feeling unsafe, unstable, or insecure. I clear all the ways that I learned early on to be a people pleaser, right? Because these are all the things that we learn by the time we're 5. So we're programmed, or we are conditioned by the time we are 5 years of age. After that, we're repeating patterns of circumstances, situations, people that reinforce the early harmful messaging.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But the early harmful messaging is actually what's teaching us and helping us to evolve and grow into the loving beings that we're meant to be.
Right.
Is at the core of us. all of us, even the darkest of the dark on this world, the core is love and light. They have, the dark people may have had to sell their soul, so to speak, to teach lessons, because without that darkness, lessons will not be taught.
Wow, that's interesting that you say that, because I did a workshop, this is a long time ago, and they were talking about, finding your spirit guides and your guardian angels and all of that. And one of the women was a trance person and went into all kinds of interesting trances and went to different worlds. And it was the most fascinating thing. But what she said was that our guides, our spiritual advisors, right? They have been through so much that they're only there because of all of the things that they've experienced. So they are all of those experiences, and they understand our experiences because they have been there themselves. Whereas most people think, well, they're angels, they come from heaven, so they're pure and wonderful, and they've never been human, perhaps. But no, all of them have.
Guides are human.
Exactly. All of
angels
them.
are angels. Guides are humans. And a lot of people tend to think that our spirit guides are our ancestors. Well, they might be there to help us, but they're not our guides. They're not our guides from the time that we were created, right? Those are separate beings. Those are the ones that you're talking about. You're right. They've already gone through their process, many processes.
Well, and that's another lovely thing that I've been lucky enough in this lifetime. I've had 2 aura pictures taken, and the first one had all of the colors of the different chakras. This was early on at the psychic fairs. There were partially formed angel wings. And at first I was like, well, isn't that interesting? But I didn't put too much weight into it. I just said to my girlfriend, who got me into the psychic fairs, is that what I think it is? And she goes, oh, hell yeah, honey, that is what it is. And I thought, cool. 10 months later, because of everything that I had been doing as far as my own growing and understanding and learning and working the fairs, the picture was indigo. My wings were fully formed in green.
Wow.
And unfortunately, I've lost those pictures. Someone stole my bag out of a car. But what happened was that it was, oh my God, that's a lot of responsibility. My ego started to kick in a little bit, right? And what I did is I stopped myself. I said, no, don't do that, because the universe has worked with me and through me my entire life. That's what's got me to this point. So there are angels on this earth, right? We just maybe not always see it that way. And for me, it was that I knew I had a responsibility. I knew with what my life experiences were. I mean, I've been to many places. Have you ever been to the Scarborough Bluffs?
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been there, and I'm telling you, it was brought to tears energetically. That place is charged, right? And the sadness and the grief that is in that area is extremely powerful and intense. But I didn't realize that underneath there were war tunnels.
Yes.
So it was just really, really profound. And it's that element of helping people to cross, right? I've done that, letting them know that it's okay. And it's a beautiful, death is not a horrible thing in the way that we have been conditioned to believe that it is. Of course, we're going to miss the people in the physical form. But the reality is they're not gone. My mom and dad are still around me. I may not see them. I may not hear them all the time, but I just know it. The little things that happen every once in a while let me know that they're there. And so for people who are watching this, our loved ones, they don't run away from us. They're just gone to their next chapter and their next phase. And more often than not, they are more helpful on the other side than they could possibly in this human form.
Yeah.
Right. I love the aspect of being able to support people in understanding that, not grieving the way that they think that they need to grieve. How can you celebrate them? How can you honor them? How can you make them a part of your life now, even though they're physically not in this realm? Right? That's the best way to honor them,
Mhm.
right? The grief and the sadness, they don't want us going through that in any capacity. But I look back to when we were young, funerals were horrible. That's come a long way where it's now celebrations of life, and it's a much simpler and much more, I find, the humor. People bring in the humor and talk about the funny stories and what they really remember. And maybe they talk about the not so nice things too, but that's okay, because in talking about those things is healing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes,
You're
that's
not
really
turning a
good.
blind eye or resisting or pushing it away. And life is magical if we just get out of our own way.
Yeah.
That's really true. And it's funny because I have my paranormal meetings in a funeral home,
Oh, I love that.
which is really great. And when we first started having the meetings at the funeral home, somebody said to me, you know, I don't know. I don't think that I could go to one of your meetings because, you know, a funeral home is not a very pleasant place. There's too many memories there. And, you know, we buried my mom from there, and there's no way that I could go there. So I don't even know why you hold it in a funeral home. So I addressed that during the next meeting. And I said, you know, one of the reasons we do hold them in a funeral home is that, you know, honestly, they're places of community. And when you think about it, right, people have gathered, I mean, eons. When someone passes, they gather. And like what you said, you know, they memorialize the person. And way back when, they actually used to sing and they used to celebrate that person. It became something really morose. But what I want to do is to kind of, you know, tell people, hey, listen, it is community. We're getting together and we're celebrating the lives of all of these amazing people in a very safe place. And I think that's what a funeral home should be. But you're right. I mean, it changed at some point in our lives. It's changed to this morose, awful place. But we need to change that again, because you're right. Celebrations of life are what they're called. They're not called like funeral dirges anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I often say too that people, the best way to honor your family who have passed is to love and honor yourself.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have a hard time doing that.
It's hard.
Well, it is if we keep telling ourselves it's hard.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that there's so many voices going on around us and in our head all the time that, you know, we really, I think, have to stop and listen. And that's in a world where everything is happening, that can be challenging.
It can be challenging. And the other thing is, we all have our various gifts, right? Some of us can see and hear the dead. Some of us can feel things, right?
Yes.
The claircognizance. I just get a strong knowing. Feeling and knowing is my thing. And, you know, when I get messaging, it's not like I'm hearing something. Yeah. You know, if you want to call my body hearing it, maybe that's the right way, right? But there is no right or wrong. It's what works for you. So for people, when they're exploring this for themselves, and I know for myself, when I was taking spiritual development courses, I had a hard time because I was comparing myself to other people.
Mm-hmm.
How come I can't get what they're getting? And it wasn't until I stepped away from that comparison place that I went, you know what? No, mine is a knowing. And when I'm accurate, I'm accurate. I mean, I'll get truth bumps. I'll get a lot of things that'll happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or other people will get them as well. But that's what's helped me probably bridge for a lot of people, because I'm not the super witchy wooey out there, if you understand what I mean.
Yes.
Because when in the field that I'm in, there has to be some semblance of professionalism. My thing is, I'm real. What you see is what you get. Right. I don't go in dressed up in a suit like to work. I'm in jeans, I'm in sweats, I'm in whatever I'm feeling in the day. And people appreciate that because it keeps it at their level.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you're being authentic, right? And people can respond to authentic.
Yes.
And they feel it, they respond to it.
Absolutely.
And even if somebody claims that they're not psychic or empathic or whatever, you can still feel authenticity for the most part if they allow themselves to do so.
Absolutely. Absolutely correct. And it's to do this work, I'm honored all the time, and I'm in awe all the time. And when I talk about it, I get emotional. Like, I get teared up because it is, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way working with the people that you work with, right? Like, there's a humbleness that comes, right? And you can't always put into words what you're experiencing and what you're seeing, because it's magic. And it's magic to be witnessing people step into their own.
Yeah, that's
sometimes too, it's hard when people want you to take that magic and bring it down to the lowest form of explanation. And it just cheapens it so much of what it is that you're experiencing, even the synchronicities. And, if we take, just as an example, if we take synchronicities and the beauty and the magic of them, because they are, every time I see like something synchronistic that happens, it's just, and then somebody will be like, what I mean by somebody being like, but you know what I mean? Like, when people are explaining their synchronicities, there's always that naysayer that it's just coincidence, and it removes the magic of what just happened. And it, and for somebody who's of a spiritual level, they just kind of go, okay, that's your feeling, that's your thought, but this is mine. I know where I am. But if somebody is just beginning, or they're not in quite that spiritual place yet, and spirit's trying to come in and show them the synchronicities, that can really bring them down very quickly, because then they start denying or overthinking or whatever it is, all of their experiences, because there'll be that, it's just coincidence, don't be so stupid. You know what I mean? But people get that, and you have to realize, like, look, if it's happening to you and you feel amazing because of what you just experienced, revel in it.
Yes.
Cherish it. Be grateful for it. Have gratitude for it. It doesn't matter what Tom, Joe, Dick, and Harry think about it. It doesn't matter what your mom or your sister or your brother or your father or your family or whoever, what they think about it. This is your experience, and you have the gratitude for it.
Absolutely correct. And I think all of us have experienced coming out of our family constructs. My family didn't accept me and understand me at all. Yeah. Right. I separated from my family for 10 years so that I could become who I was meant to become, because their box was what they wanted me in and expected that I was going to stay in. And that didn't work for me. So I was the black sheep really quickly, or the white sheep, I like to call it, right? Unconditional love and just learning to step into my own. And there's a lot of people out there that are experiencing that. They're experiencing that they're not accepted, that they're struggling. The biggest thing is we need to learn to accept ourselves. It took me years to love myself. Years, because I wanted the approval and the validation and from my family, because we have this romanticized version, and I don't know where it comes from, of what our family's supposed to look like. But in essence, everyone's born into a family of dysfunction of some way, shape, or form. And it is because they are teaching you. They are in the darkness teaching you to step into your own.
I love that. That makes so much sense.
So let go of the romanticized version, accept what is in front of you, call it a spade, but love them anyways, because they're doing the best that they could with what they know.
That's very true.
Right? I don't hate on my parents for what they did. I come to understand they were wounded just like I was wounded, but they were wounded in their own right. And you know what? They did the best they could. And sometimes we're coming in as teachers for our parents. We chose that right before coming here. So it's that whole element of, you know what, there's purpose behind everything. There is no good or bad. There is no right or wrong. It's all experience on the same continuum. The good and bad and the right and wrong is our family construct, first of all, then a social and societal construct.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah. Beautiful.
That was a great, oh my gosh, that was such a great conversation.
It would be wonderful to have you back again, Pamela, if you're up for it sometime.
I would love that. Like I love, you can tell I love these conversations.
Yes, you do too.
And it's about helping people to understand. There's a lot of people that are questioning and looking and not sure. And they can be misguided.
Yeah.
Right. Depending on the person. So discernment is huge. Trust your own intuition, your own gut when you're connecting with people, whether it's therapy, whether it's a psychic. You know, I often say to people, if you're making a decision for anything, ask yourself, is this aligned with me? And pay attention to your body's response. Because our body's like a pendulum. It's either yes or no, and act according to it. And don't feel guilty. Just honor you every step of the way.
100%. I 100% agree with that. Yeah, I don't know why I have this also running through my head, today too. And it's one of the things that a lot of people confuse with is when we talk about spirituality or we talk about, even our abilities or our gifts, a lot of people tend to confuse spirituality with just being pleasant and happy. And I can't say anything negative. I have to be Mary Poppins all the time and all of this stuff. And I'll get these, because I'm very vocal, especially if I do go on social media and there'll be something that I don't agree with. I don't. But I'll say what I have to say, and I'll be like, no, that's like this is not right. And I'll get these comments like, oh, what can I say? That's a horrible thing for a spiritual person to say. It's like, I didn't say anything horrible. I said something true. And we have to remember spirituality is about truth. It's about being authentic. It's about being genuine. It's trusting yourself, trusting what it is that you are receiving. And nobody's going to receive the exact same thing all the time.
No, and your truth is your truth. Your truth, Lynda, is your truth. My truth is my truth. And it's learning to accept that we all have our own truth and it is all valid. It is all valid. The minute we're judging it, right? The minute we're judging another person's journey, we are creating divide. The minute you're judging is good or bad or right or wrong, you've now created a divide in humanity, right? Physically. Right. If you're doing that with yourself, you're creating a divide between your spiritual wisdom and the human experience. What we want to do is integrate those things.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I love that. Yeah. That's a good way to view it. I want to say thank you so much, Pamela, for being on our show. And again, is there a way that people can reach you?
Absolutely. There's a few ways. You can reach me at either the Aquarian Shift 111@gmail.com. You can reach me at Evolove, EVOLOVE healing.com. They're both of my businesses. The one's the practice, the other one's stepping into the witchy, and there might be another one coming because I'm discovering and stepping, I think, into the full gamut of who I am. So Spiritual Alchemist, helping you to move wounds into wisdom.
Perfect. Thank you so very, very much. And thank you. And hopefully, again, we can have you on soon. It would be such a pleasure for us. Thank you.
I would love it very much. Thank you so much.
And for everyone else, we will see you next week. And thanks for being a part of our show, and take care.
Bye. Love.